What's going on, traders? Ralphdatrader here with GCB Trading. In this video, you guys, I would like to review the Nasdaq from this past week. The Nasdaq offers some great opportunities depending on whether you are a buyer or a seller, and also depending on what session that you're trading. Because from what I've seen, that the Nasdaq has given us some opportunities in each of the three sessions, even though we know the Nasdaq is predominantly a New York session trading instrument. But there were some setups that happened during the Asian session. There were some setups that happened during the London session, and we know we had some setups that happened during the New York session. But like I said, it all depends on, what setup that you're hunting, and are you hunting buy low setups or sell high setups? So depending on, what that trader is looking for, there were some opportunities that happened on the Nasdaq this past week, which was the first week of the new trading month. All right. So, but before we get on the charts, let's review our simple concept of the markets only does three things. All right. So we all know that all markets only does three things. Okay. They're going to break out and continue to trend in the direction of that breakout. They're going to break out and reverse, meaning they're going to break out of a daily level and reverse back in the inside, or they're either going to stay in a trading range. Okay. These are the only three things that a market will do. Now, when it comes to the setups, we know that there's only two setups. Okay. We're either going to have a buy low setup, or we're either going to have a sell high setup. Now, when it comes to the pattern, we're either going to have the trap and shift of the dump coil pump or the pump coil dump. But at the end of the day, there's only two setups, you guys. It's either a buy low setup or a sell high setup. Now, when it comes to the levels, okay, the only levels that I'm working from and using are the previous day's high level, closing price level, and the previous day's low level. These are the levels that I'm looking for to get my daily signal from, the previous day's low or the previous day's high level. Now that we've got that out the way, let's take a look at the charts. Now, as you guys can see, on Monday, all right, on Monday, we had some major red news out on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. But now that's the first thing. We know that we had major red news. Second thing, what daily signal did we receive to even put the NASDAQ on our watch list? At the close of Friday at 4:59 Eastern Standard Time, I went over this in a previous video that we did not have a daily signal. But at the start of the Asian session, when the market opened up at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the market opened up on a gap, triggering the previous day's low level. That gave us our daily signal. So we had a market that broke out of a previous day's low level, giving us now, depending on the setup that you're hunting, and we know that markets only do three things. They're either going to break out, all right, and continue in the direction of that breakout, or they're going to break out, reverse back in the inside, or and fail, or they're going to stay in a trading range. So in this scenario, depending on what setup that you are hunting, we can see we had our daily signal of a market that broke the previous day's low, giving us our daily signal. Now, during the Asian session, we can see that this market pumped up. Okay. It pumped up in that first hour, coiled sideways, and it offered traders a nice pump and dump setup. All right. So depending on what session that you're trading and what setup you, the trader, are hunting, but this was a pump and dump template. All right. It was a pump and dump move all the way back down to our previous week's low level, and you can see they continued to drop all the way until we got into the London session. So in this scenario, we had a market that has broken the previous day's low level, pulled back on the inside, but it continued in the direction of the breakout. Okay, so we had a breakout, pullback, continuation. So this was a breakout continuation trade that happened. All right, so now if you was trading the Asian session offered a pump and dump. All right. It was clear as day. You had the pump, the coil, and then it dumped. Right. Now, that is, you were looking for the pump and dump setup. You got that. As we get into the London session, all right, we already know we have our daily signal. Okay, we have our daily signal, and we can see that the market has broken down. Okay, it started to break down heading into the London session. Now, if you're a reversal trader like myself, the London session offered traders a reversal setup. Okay, it offered traders a reversal setup. We can see it breached the previous day's low level, breached our previous week's low level, continued to dump down as we head into our timing window. Okay, our timing window. So right around that third hour, okay, right around that third hour, we can see that this market begins to start to push back up to the upside. Now we had a market that came down to a major round number level, all right, and began to fail. Okay, it stopped going lower. Then finally at 3:30, it gives us a nice engulfing candle. Now, a trader that's more advanced, they're taking this entry. Okay, but if you're not advanced, wait until you get a close back inside of the 20 EMA, which is our money line, which we did. And now you just want to fight for the best fill. And the best fill in this situation was right off of the 50 level. And this trade offered you 100 points or more if you was targeting the previous week's low level. So just say you took an entry here, okay, and I target 100 points. But if you're targeting the previous week's low level, that gave you 117 points. All right. If you were being more conservative and wait until you got inside the 20 EMA. But if you were more advanced and a little bit more skilled, you took an entry here and target the previous week's low level. That got you 150 some points. All right. During the London session. All right. During the London session, it was a buy low setup. We already said that there's only two setups. It was either a sell high, which you got in the Asian session. All right. It was a market that sold high. All right. And then the London session, you got the market that was a buy low setup. Now, heading into the New York session, okay, we had our daily signal, all right, where market had breached the previous day's low level. We had major red news out at 10 a.m. And like I said, I went over this trade on the previous video, but as you guys can see at 9:30, it explodes back inside of our daily range, trapping short traders here. And then you just wait until after major red news. And like I said, my entry was around in this area where we had the buy low opportunity. Now, like I said earlier, now this may have been too high for traders, you know what I mean, to take, but it was my edge, and that was the reason why I took the trade. But it was still a buy low reversal setup. All right. Now, as we head into Tuesday, and we know that Tuesday typically expands the range, all right? But what was the daily signal that we had? We had an outside day daily signal. Now, when it comes to the news, what news did we have on the day? Okay. What news did we have on the day on that Tuesday? I don't think we had any major red news out on Tuesday. Okay. But let's just check and see if we had some major red news out on Tuesday. I don't think it was any news out on Tuesday, but let me just go and check and see. Um, let's go here. Right, this thing is giving us a little bit of lag. Let's go here. Let's do this, and let's check our news for Tuesday. So yeah, we had no major red news out on Tuesday, so we were good to go if the setup presented itself on Tuesday. So we had no major red news out on Tuesday. We had an outside day daily signal. Now, as you guys can see that during the Asian session, once again, depending on the setup that you're hunting, all right, we're right at our closing price level, and the market offered, a pump and dump setup. Okay, we had our pump on that Monday, and you can see they began to dump during the Asian session, heading into our London session. London session traders were able to participate in some low hanging fruit. All right, it was participating in some low hanging fruit. All right. So London session was able to catch, a nice little continuation, right? Nice little continuation for a pump and dump, sell high setup. All right. Now, coming into the New York session. Okay. Now, as we come into the New York session, we can see that during the London session, price breached the previous day's low level. Okay, so giving us a signal on the day as well as the outside day daily signal. And like I say, this is all these setups are dependent on the setup that you, the trader, are hunting. All right. Now, like I said in my previous video, I'm hunting reversals. Okay. So now you can see that during the Asian session gave you a pump and dump reversal, but that is not the session that I'm looking to trade. All right. I trade the New York sessions. So as you guys can see into our New York session, and then all we do is just wait, guys. If you're looking for a reversal, you know what it is that you're looking for. It's a buy low setup. You either want to see the trap and shift setup or the dump coil pump. In this situation, we were able to get the trap and shift. The market comes down with a 1, 2, 3, put in the higher high. They come back to retest, give us this nice engulfing. And you could have taken an entry here, a more aggressive entry because we did not close back inside of the 20 EMA, but a more skilled trader is entering in here. And like I said, if you want to be more conservative, wait until you get a candle that closes back inside of the 20 EMA, which is our money line. And boom, there's your trade for over 100 points. So on Tuesday, we had a pump and dump during the Asian session. All right, market pumps up on that Monday, begins to coil sideways and begins to drop during the Asian session. London session traders were able to partake in some low-hanging fruit. Then when we get in the New York session, our New York session traders were able to partake in the buy low reversal setup. Now, this is just, I'm just walking through this and just showing you guys there were setups for, you know, either you was a buyer or whether you were the seller, and depending on whatever session that you was looking to trade, because we have traders in different time zones. Now, as we come to our free cash Wednesday, we know which is the midpoint range of the week, and we're typically looking for a reversal. Now, we did not get a daily signal. Okay, there was no daily signal for Wednesday. Now, oh, I forgot to mention the daily signals that I look for. You guys already know it's a closing breakout inside there or outside day daily signal. So for me, there was no daily signal here at the close of 4:59 Eastern Standard Time. There was no daily signal. The major red news that we had out on Wednesday. Let's check the major red news and see what we had for Wednesday. Wednesday's major red news we had at 8:15, and we had major red news out at 10 a.m. So we know we need to wait until after 10 a.m. Okay, if a setup presents itself, and depending on the setup that you're hunting as a trader. Now, as you guys can see, there was no daily signal. All right, so no daily signal. All right, so there was no reason to look at the Nasdaq during the Asian session or during the London session, and it is just my interpretation of what I'm looking for. Okay, so if it's no daily signal, there's no reason for me to look at the instrument. All right. Now, but as we get into our London, I'm in our New York session, we can see that 10:15, the market breaks a previous day's high level. Okay, so it triggers breakout traders. All right, we breached the previous day's high level. That is our daily signal. All right, but at this point, all right, we can see that the market is pushing up to the upside. All right, so if I'm looking for a reversal, then I would just sit back and wait for a reversal to happen. But in this case, there was no reversal to be had. All right. Now, it did break out and continue in the breakout, because what do markets only do? Three things, right? They will break out, pull back, all right, and continue with the breakout. If that was a setup that you were looking for as a trader, is a continuation trade, then you will want to wait until the market pulls back, all right, and then take the trade in the breakout. Now, we did have major red news out at 10 a.m. And depending on, whether, what time frame that you were on, you could have finessed this and got a better entry. But as you guys can see, we had the major red news out at 10 a.m. They engulfed it here. All right, they engulfed it here, but still there was no daily signal. If I'm waiting for a daily signal, the daily signal did not come until 10:15. All right, so now if you want to buy the breakout, all right, if that's what you like to do and that's what you do as a trader, you buy the breakout, then you will have entered here. But based off what I'm looking for, there was no trade set up here on Wednesday. All right, so no trade set up there on Wednesday. For me, that was a day to just sit on your hands. Now, as you guys can see, at 4:59 Eastern Standard Time, what is the daily signal we have? We have a market that has closed in breakout. All right. So the Nasdaq goes up on my watch list. All right. Now, what news do we have going into our Thursday? So I would check the news and see the news that I have coming in on Thursday. So on Thursday, we had major rate at 8:30, which is cool with me because I'm not coming to the charts until 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. All right. Well, I'm looking to trade after 9:30, but I come to the charts around 8:30, 9 o'clock AM. Now we can see we have about daily of a market that has closed in breakout. Now, once again, during the Asian session, we can see that the market breaks out of the previous day's high level once again, triggering breakout traders, giving us a signal on the day once again. All right, so we have a signal on the day once again. And like I said, depending on the setup that you are hunting as a trader, okay, I hunt reversals, but depending on what you're looking for and what session that you are trading, this market offers us a pump and dump. All right, pump and dump setup during the Asian session. Okay, markets only do three things. All right, so this market closed in breakout, broke out once again during the Asian session, and reversed back inside of the range. Okay, so we had a market closed in breakout, triggered breakout traders once again during the Asian session, giving us a signal on the day as well. It breaks out and reverses back inside, offering traders a pump, coil, dump. All right, in the Asian session. And like I said, now we know that the Nasdaq is predominantly a New York session trading pair, but like I said earlier, we have people that are trading all in different parts of the country. So depending on what you're looking for as a trader, right? I'm just walking through this on you guys. Now, as you guys can see, London session traders were able to partake in a dump and pump, okay? Because Asian session pumped it up, they dumped it down. Heading into our London session, we can see that they came right down to a major round number and they reversed back up in the reverse back. They come back. London session opens up. They dump down once again, giving us a double bottom. Okay, giving us a double bottom right off of a major round number. Okay, so the market broke out, closed in breakout. All right, then it reversed back on the inside. Okay, reversed back on the inside and began to go into an accumulation phase, putting in a lower low, and they just really it was a breakout pullback, and they just continue in the London session. They continue with the breakout. All right, London session continue with the breakout. All right, so London session were able to catch a dump and pump for over 100 points. So like I said, price gave a double bottom right off a major round number. Okay, we got a candle that closed back inside about 20 EMA of that money line. All right, and then here was your entry. All right, here was your entry for a nice move back up to the upside for over 100 points during the London session. And like I said, it's just depending on what setup that you are hunting, what setup you are hunting. Okay, now as we head into the New York session, all right, as we get into our New York session, we know that we had um, major red news out at 8:30. We had our daily signal. All right. So how is price behaving once it gets into your session? And then what setup are you hunting? Okay. What's the setup that you're hunting? So at 9:30, this market explodes to the upside. All right. It gives a little retracement back here. Okay. Pulls back right at our 50 level. And depending on the setup that a trader is hunting. Now, if you wanted to take the continuation trade here at 950, this was like 100-point move just right here in these two candles right here. All right. You just stayed in line with the trend, depending on what you're looking for. Now, if somebody for me, I'm looking for a reversal, we can see that this market pumps up with a 1, 2, 3. It goes into an accumulation phase, give us a nice engulfing. And then we had the trade for a nail and bell back down. All right. Had it right back down. All right. So it gave us a pump coil dump setup. Now, like I said earlier, this candle, we did not have a candle that closed back inside of the 20 EMA. Now, if you're not as skilled, you're not taking this entry. And also depending on the time frame that you're using. Me, I'm always just using the 5 minute time frame. So if you're not as skilled, okay, if you're not as skilled, you don't want to sell down here. Okay. We don't want to sell low. Okay. We don't want to sell low. We want to sell high. Because where's our levels at? Our previous day's high level is here. Our closing price level is here. We're up high. Okay. We're selling right before the double zero level. We don't want to sell down here because we're next to a swing low here, and price can hit that swing low and pull back. All right. So you don't want to sell low. That's not what we're looking for. But if neither one of these are your trade setups, then you just don't trade. Okay. But this offered us a pump coil dump setup for over 100 plus points on free cash Thursday. Now you guys can see that it also offered another setup outside of the timing window. But like I said, guys, I'm just walking through this and just showing you guys some setups that happen depending on what setup that you're hunting and what session that you are trading. Now, this was the first week of a new month, so we know we had NFP, FOMC, we had all those major news events. All right. So now as we head into Free Cash Friday, now for me, there was no daily signal that happened on Free Cash Friday. All right. I did not get a closing breakout or inside day daily signal. And plus it was FOMC, so I really don't trade on Friday when we have so much news out. But as you guys can see, a setup still presented itself because this market was technically still in breakout. All right. We still had longs in the market. Okay. And we know that markets only do three things, right? So technically, this market is still in breakout because no previous day's low level has been triggered. And as you guys can see, it pumped up at the end of the day heading into the Asian session, it begins to go into an accumulation phase. Okay. Then it offered London session traders, all right, a pump and dump. All right. It pumped up, accumulated, coiled sideways. All right. In that third hour of the London session, it offered a nice pump and dump setup. Now, like I said, there was no daily signal for me, no closing breakout or inside day or outside day, but technically this market is still in breakout. Okay, they're still in breakout because no previous day's low level has been triggered. And we know that the market only does three things. They're either going to break out, pull back, and continue in the direction of the trend, or they're either going to break out, fail, and reverse. All right. So, and this is what that market did. It broke out. All right. It closed in breakout on Wednesday. It broke out on Thursday, all right, and came back inside, all right, and then all it did was just pull back, okay? So markets, it just pulled back. They only do three things: it break out, pull back, all right, and it failed. Now this breakout has failed, all right, because we've now hit the previous day's low level coming into our New York session, all right. So London session was able to catch a pump and dump. If this is what you're looking for, okay, if that is what you're looking for, you had a nice pump and dump setup, okay. Now, as you get into the New York session, we know that in New York session we had FOMC, NFP, all right, so we had a lot of major red news out. As you guys can see, it did trigger the previous day's low level, giving us a signal on the day, all right, so that gave us a signal on the day once we got into the New York session. So now if you was looking to trade this, okay, you will be looking for a reversal if that is what you are looking for. And me, that is what I look for, a reversal setup. So as you guys can see, it dumped down, okay, market goes up, puts in a higher high. We get this nice engulfing candle here, all right, doing our 10 a.m. club, and boom, you could have just entered right off of the previous day's low level for a 100-point nail and bell trade setup. All right. So that was a nice reversal trade setup if you traded on Friday. But like I said, guys, I just wanted to walk through this and just go over, and show you guys that there were some setups to be had depending on the trader that you are and what setup that you are hunting. All right. Now, like I said, now some of these setups are not some setups that I'm going to take because, like I clarified, I didn't have a daily signal. Okay. And some of them was not in the sessions that I'm trading, but I just wanted to walk through this and just show us that there were opportunities to be had depending on the session that you're trading and depending on the setup that you are hunting. So just wanted to briefly walk through this and just, show you guys these things that happen, these setups that happened on the Nasdaq this past week. So like always, man, work hard, stay disciplined, and be patient. My son just in the video, and work hard, stay disciplined, be patient, and know that your time will come, and be the reason someone smiles today. Okay, be the reason someone smiles today. Peace and love. Have a good one.
That's always what you say when you do.